It's no secret that loot boxes are a hot topic and have been for years now. Ever since the negative backlash towards loot boxes became mainstream with games like Black Ops 3 and the recent Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's garnered the attention of governments across the world. From the US to the UK government and now Hawaii taking a more grand stance on the matter, they are all working to alleviate loot boxes. Recently, Hawaii has proposed 2 bills that can make huge lasting effects that could offer transparency across the board. What's going on, guys? It's DKD13 aka Kevin here, and today we're going to be talking about the complex issue that is loot boxes. First, I feel it's right that I lay out my personal feelings on loot boxes, albeit probably not necessary because I feel I share the same opinion as many of you out there on the matter as well. However, there is an extreme opinion that I don't quite share that I feel that should be laid out. I don't think loot boxes are the devil or inherently bad. To me, I'm completely fine with them being in the games to an extent, of course. Free-to-play games, of course, use it as one of their only sources of revenue, and in that case, I think it's completely fine. I believe trading the cost of a game up front to instead entice players of your game to spend money on loot boxes instead is a fair trade, although the content of loot boxes must also play ball in my book as well. Loot boxes should only be cosmetic, period. Cosmetic items varying from skins, camos, and or costumes are completely optional and not aspects of the game that affect gameplay. I feel the real issue with loot boxes is when they don't follow those cosmetic rules and venture towards a dreaded pay-to-win model, especially when massive games like Star Wars Battlefront 2 don't initially follow that rule and try to implement gameplay affecting items in their loot boxes. It really does attract a negative attention across the board for all developers in the industry that use loot boxes in their game and even use them in the right way, like Overwatch. While a case can be made for having gameplay affecting items in loot boxes of a free-to-play game, which I still think it's unfair to a degree, I still stand by the notion that loot boxes should only contain cosmetic items that do not affect gameplay in any shape or form to prevent it from being pay to win, especially if the game is not free to play and is a game that you pay up front for. Examples, like I said before, Battlefront 2 have taken this issue to the mainstream and could have lasting effects for games moving forward. While the US and the UK government have put their 2 cents in on the loot box issue in games, Hawaii Representative Chris Lee has led the charge with the introduction of 2 bills to the Hawaii State Legislature. The first bill, House Bill 2727, would require publishers to label games that contain loot box systems along with displaying the probability of getting each item. A similar system is already in play in China that has a law requiring games to show the probability of getting rare items out of loot boxes. I'm completely on board with this move, and even thinking labeling the boxes is a good idea as well. It goes back to transparency, letting players know upfront the odds of scoring rare in-game items and the existence of loot boxes on the boxes step forward towards more transparency that could ease the amount of backlash. While of course well knowing that the main issue of loot boxes is not exactly the loot boxes themselves as what they contain, the verdict still stands where I feel that it will definitely alleviate the overall backlash in the mainstream as well. However, moving on to the second bill, it definitely tells a different tale. House Bill 2686, said bill will limit the sale of games with loot boxes to those over 21, which I feel won't solve a thing. While this most likely takes aim at the opinion that loot boxes are gambling, side note, an opinion I don't entirely agree with, but do agree that loot box systems tread very close to gambling, have similar aspects to gambling, and could steer young impressionable minds to gambling. On paper, it makes sense. Having a gambling-esque feature in your game be only for those over 21. However, in practice, this wouldn't have any substantial effect. Myself and nearly every one of my friends bypass the limit of buying rated M games by having an older friend or parent purchase the game for us. The exact same thing will happen if this bill gets passed. People will just ask an older friend or their parents to just simply buy the game for them. I'd much rather see House Bill 2727 come to fruition because it's feasible and offers the elements of, you guessed it, transparency. Now let's be transparent about another aspect of all this. Loot boxes are here to stay whether you like it or not. As much as I'd love to have my game unlocks be based off of my progression and completing tasks in game, loot boxes make publishers and developers stupid money. Let's look at Activision with titles under their belt like Call of Duty, Destiny, Overwatch, and other titles such as World of Warcraft, and even mobile hits like Candy Crush. Activision brought in a record $7.16 billion in revenue across its latest fiscal year, an astounding number to say the least. However, $4 billion of that revenue came from in-game net bookings, which include things like DLC, in-app purchases, viruses, and those pesky loot boxes. While not all 4 billion were from loot boxes, they took a considerable amount and a big enough amount to warrant their existence. Loot boxes make companies tons of money. In fact, last year Ubisoft made more money off of microtransactions and loot boxes than digital game sales, bringing in 202.6 million and 194 million respectively. Switching gears to a more personal level, as someone who has only bought a loot box pack once in Black Ops 2, I've actually never met anyone in real life that regularly buys loot boxes or microtransactions. Whether it be a hardcore gamer friend of mine or an acquaintance in class, no one has ever admitted that they purchased loot boxes, which triggered another thought. These loot boxes aren't for us. They aren't for the dedicated PlayStation, Xbox, PC, or Nintendo gamer that easily sinks hours and hours into gaming a week. There's a silent group of people that would rather pay than do their time in the game to unlock certain items, and I don't think it's really a bad thing for them to make that choice. Maybe a busy father raising a family is purchasing loot boxes or microtransactions because he can't feasibly sink the amount of time he'd like to in a certain game, or a really casual gamer that just wants to bypass the time it takes to progress in a multiplayer game to unlock a certain weapon. Whether we like it or not, people like this choose to spend their money in this manner, and clearly developers and publishers enjoy the way they spend their money. And they enjoy it so much so that they sometimes gear their entire game off of the notion of trying to get people to buy the loot boxes and microtransactions that they add to the game. And while it's been very rough to see all these games fall to the loot box fiasco with games like, again, Battlefront 2 or Shadow of War of 2017, and I really do think that these bills being proposed by Hawaii representative can really make a difference in the loot box fiasco. Of course, the House Bill 2727, not the other one that limits the sale of games from 21 and up for games that have loot boxes. This topic really has no direct correlation to PlayStation, but it surely could and has in the past. Naughty Dog games like Uncharted 4 and Last of Us have had microtransactions that angered many players and even caused some to flee the mode as a whole. I mainly wanted to bring this topic to PSF as a means of conversation, a barometer to say the least. What do you think about loot boxes and microtransactions as a whole? If you were to pick between the two bills we discussed earlier, what would you put into place? Also, probably the most important of all, do you buy loot boxes or microtransactions regularly? Let me know down in those comments below. And make sure while you're down there to check out our description where you can find our Twitter and Instagram where we post questions and more about PlayStation. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe for more PlayStation content. Thank you all for watching, and as always, keep on following.